I have to thank you, and at the outset, I like to wish the audience a very happy, healthful, prosperous new year. Thank you so much for giving me this particular platform for sharing whatever little I know. Let me begin this satsang on the new year, the first lecture, by chanting two verses from Bhagavad Gita. ईश्वरः परमः कृष्ण सच्चिदानन्दविग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविन्द सर्वकारणकारणम् भोक्तारां यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरम् सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति. I render my salutations to the causeless cause of all and the rootless root of all. I place my prostrations at the feet of all the liberated masters, and I render my salutations to the divinity which is innate and inherent in all of us. Thank you so much. I really thank my mentor, my philosopher, my guide, Mr. S. Krishnamurti, the founder of Meditation and Study Circle, and also Srimati Rukmini Krishnamurti for guiding me in the process of public lecturing on philosophical and spiritual topics. I always find the audience in Meditation and Study Circle as elite audience. They are seriously into spiritual persuasion, and they are attending several satsangs, and they're evolved. So I get connected to them very fast, and I feel always immensely happy when I am delivering lectures through this platform. I thank the present directors of Meditation and Study Circle, Mr. Vasudev and Mrs. Vani Vasudev, for giving me an opportunity and promoting me to deliver lectures through this platform. The topic that I have selected today for the lecture is the three halls on the spiritual path. The three halls on the spiritual path is a lecture which is primarily designed on the basis of a wonderful book called The Voice of the Silence. I don't know how many of you have read that book or accessed that book, but it's a book to be read in anybody's lifetime. You just cannot afford to miss that book. Basically, it's a wonderful book which helps us in framing our own spiritual path. This is going to be an audio visual presentation. So I like to share some slides. So the title of the topic is Three Halls on the Spiritual Path. What are these three halls? Why are these halls there on the spiritual path? What exactly is the purpose of these halls? And what do happen when a pilgrim passes through these halls over a period of time is going to be the content of my lecture for today. I have a very fundamental question to you. Are we travelers? Yes, many of us keep traveling from a place to place, from a country to country. So we are travelers. Maybe we are travelers on the physical plane. But are we travelers on the higher planes? It is said we are eternal travelers. Yes, we are travelers on the path. The path is long and the path is curved. The path is curved all the way uphill. And many times we do not know what lies on the path in front of us. If we know what lies in front of us on the path, probably it becomes easier for us to be prepared and to face. But most often, many of us are unaware of what lies on the path. We are travelers, keep coming to this physical plane, exist here, live here, develop relationships, and then after a while, when our time is over, we exit. We exit the physical plane only to come back. Only to come back, and as reincarnated souls, we again repeat, and the process gets recurred. So this is Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. This journey of life and death and after death and reincarnation has been going on for several millennia. We are unaware of it. We do not remember many of our past births. And we do not know what lies in front of us and what's there in store for us in future. In Mankutimana Kagga, there is a wonderful poem by D.V. Gundappa. He says, Yatrikaru navu divya kshetravi loka. Yatrikaru navu divya kshetravi loka. Satradali ನೇಮದಿಂದಿರಲಿ ಕೆಡೆಯುಂಟು ರಾತ್ರಿ ಮೂರಾಯ್ತು ಹೊರಡೆನೆ ತೆರಳಿದೊಡೆ ಪಾರುಪತ್ಯದವ ಮೆಚ್ಚುವನು ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. ಯಾತ್ರಿಕರು ನಾವು ದಿವ್ಯ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರವಿ ಲೋಕ. We are travelers. And this is a divine world. A world where divinity exists anywhere and everywhere. We have to live according to some specific rules and regulations, laws and strictures. Once our life is over or we live to our lifespan, if we leave this physical world gracefully, the supervisor, that is the Almighty, will definitely appreciate us. That is the meaning of this Kagga. So the Kagga wonderfully says we are travelers and this is a travel place. But most of us confuse after coming over to this plane, and we think we are not travelers, and we assume that we have come to settle down here forever, which is impossible. So we are travelers, otherwise we can call pilgrims. We are on a pilgrimage. When we are on a pilgrimage, we are there in the place for a few days, and we know that this is not our place. We return. We go back gracefully. But how long the travel continues? How long the pilgrimage continues? You know, this pilgrimage continues as long as the dualities continue in our lives. We exist in the midst of dualities. We live more in the mind than in the body. I'm sure you all agree. We live more in the mind because we spend a lot of time in the midst of our thoughts and our emotions. Thoughts and emotions are the products of dualities. ದ್ವಂದ್ವಗಳೇ ಯೋಚನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಉತ್ಪತ್ತಿ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ದ್ವಂದ್ವವಿದೆಯೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ದ್ವಂದ್ವವಿದೆಯೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾವನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So as long as we live with dualities, we have to keep continuing this travel. It will never come to an end. But when the dualities disappear, travel ends. What happens when the travel ends? When the travel ends, we merge in the non-duality. We merge in the existence. We are not a part of existence then, we are the existence. Such a journey which continues for several lives, one after the other, according to some specific laws, like law of karma, law of incarnation, is really not easy. It is arduous and it's very testing. There's no doubt about it. It's a very difficult task. We have passed through several births. We had several experiences in our life. We accumulated a lot of karma, and in the process, we have been traveling, and our travel may continue for a pretty long period. What kind of path are we traveling? Every one of us, however cruel the person, however pristine the person, however rude the person, however peaceful the person, invariably is on the spiritual path. Maybe we are at the different stations on the path. And the spiritual path is a razor edge. In Chandogya Upanishad and Katha Upanishad, wonderfully, the spiritual path is described as a razor edge path. A razor edge path is a very sharp path. And the person who is treading through that path has to be extremely aware, awake, and sharp. If he is not aware, definitely he is going to hurt himself. That's what this wonderful verse from the Katha Upanishad says. Yes, the path to God realization is very difficult. It's like walking a tightrope. It's like walking on the edge of a sharp razor. Yet, the sadhak should not despair. He should be aware, awake, and should not stop till the goal is reached. That's what this wonderful verse from the first part of Katha Upanishad clearly says. The whole lecture that I'm going to talk today is nothing but the way we need to progress on the spiritual path. And we know it's a very tough task. And it's a path of razor edge. Such a spiritual path is wonderfully explained in a beautiful book which is named as Voice of the Silence. This book was written by Madam Blavatsky, a Russian mystic who was the founder of Theosophical Society. She lived in the 19th century and she wrote this book just 2 years before she passed away. In 1889, she wrote this wonderful book which beautifully explains to all the sadhaks how should we progress on the spiritual path, how we need to be trained to tread the path successfully, and such a training, how is it going to be provided by the 3 halls through which we pass through. She unfolds a wonderful strategy to tread the path successfully. The source book for Voice of the Silence is Book of the Golden Precepts. This is the source book or the fundamental book. Based on this, Madam Blavatsky authored Voice of the Silence for common people. Book of the Golden Precepts is unavailable. It's a very ancient book, very, very ancient book. And she came into contact with this ancient book when she was in the ashram of Maharshi Maurya in Tibet. Madam Blavatsky was a disciple of Maurya Maharshi. Maurya Maharshi had and has an ashram in the Tibetan valley, Himalayan valleys of Tibet. He is a Jivan Mukta Maharshi. He is a liberated master. And she was an ardent disciple of Maurya Maharshi. She stayed in his ashram for a couple of years when she came into contact with this book. She glanced through the books. She spent some time contemplating on the preachings and the teachings mentioned in that book. She was very much influenced by the philosophical and the spiritual content of that book. And she decided to write a book, and that's how the Voice of Silence was published. Please remember, any spiritual book for that matter should not be just studied. Any spiritual book should be lived. They are the books not for simply studying like the way you study the books in your school and college. They need to be studied in such a manner that you adopt the teachings and the preachings in life and test whether those teachings and preachings do work or do not work. If they work, accept. If they do not work, yes, they have not worked for you. Forget about them. Unless You adopt, you live, you test. You should not accept that. Neither you should reject that. You should just listen to it and understand it. Voice of the Silence is such a beautiful book which needs to be lived and tested. It unfolds the path of liberation very beautifully. How a disciple or a pilgrim on the spiritual path has to attain liberation. This book has three fragments, or three topics, or three chapters. The first one is the voice of the silence. The second one is the two paths. And the third one is the seven portals. Let me not bother trying to explain each chapter of this book. Let us pick up the first chapter, that is the voice of the silence. In this chapter, there is one small section that deals with the three halls. That's what is the topic for today's satsang. What is the basic essence of this particular topic? That is the three halls. See, the entire book of Voice of Silence has a theme, and on the basis of the theme, this book has been authored. The theme is, mind is the slayer of the real. Let the disciple slay the slayer. This is a profound statement, and a statement which needs to be contemplated, clearly understood, and clearly lived. What exactly the statement says? Human mind is a powerful tool, but at the same time, human mind is the slayer of the real. We perceive the whole world through the mind, and the mind never allows us to perceive the world as it is, because mind is a slayer of the real. We have packed our mind with a lot of our own notions, assumptions, beliefs, faiths, conjectures, and our own presumptions. Our mind is a conditioned mind. We are conditioned by this world. We are conditioned by the scriptures. We are conditioned by every person with whom we come into contact. Such a conditioned mind cannot see the truth. Real means truth. Such a conditioned mind cannot see the truth as it is. We see the truth as the mind perceives. And you all know very well, the only barrier between man and the God is the mind. If you transcend the mind, you are with the truth, you are with the God. But mind is the impediment. Mind is the barrier. It slays the real. That's why there is a call in the Voice of the Silence book, let the disciple slay the slayer. If you are a serious spiritual sadhak, you are definitely a disciple. The disciple who is on the path should make every attempt to slay the slayer. The slayer is the mind. So you need to slay the mind. That means to say you are supposed to transcend the mind. You are supposed to decondition your mind. You all know very well that we are nothing but our thoughts. And incessant thoughts keep arising in our mind time and again. These thoughts condition us and make us think the way they want. You cannot think the way that your soul wants. You think the way that your mind wants. Basically, because the thoughts have imprisoned us. The mind has imprisoned us, and it prevents us from perceiving the truth as it is. The three halls that Madam Blavatsky describes in The Voice of the Silence clearly guides us how to win our mind, rather, how to conquer our mind and how to transcend our mind. The first hall she represents, or she says, is hall of ignorance. The second hall is the hall of learning. And the third hall is hall of wisdom. So the first hall is hall of ignorance. We can also call this hall as hall of avidya. Avidya. You know very well, avidya comes out of aviveka. Aviveka leads us to avidya. So most of us, as disciple or as pilgrim, should pass through this first hall. In order to enter the second hall, when we successfully pass through the first hall, we are eligible to enter the second hall, which is called as hall of learning, where a lot of learning takes place, and probably we develop a good understanding of what we are and what is this existence. We understand to an extent what is life and how to progress in life on the path of spirituality. Once you successfully pass through this hall, you enter the third hall, which is hall of wisdom. By the time you reach hall of wisdom, sufficient maturity would have been developed by a pilgrim or a disciple. And after entering into the third hall, whatever knowledge you have gained in the first hall and second hall translates itself into wisdom. It's not sufficient to have knowledge, because knowledge has a boundary. Knowledge has its own limitations. Although knowledge is a powerful tool, the knowledge has to translate itself into wisdom. Only the wisdom is going to help us on the spiritual path to transcend our mind completely. If you see these images below, look at the first image. The person is so ignorant. He is cutting the branch of the tree on which he is sitting with a saw. This is what exactly happens in our real lives also. Without realizing what is right and what is wrong, we keep actually axing our foot. We are lost in the material world. As you move to the second station, that is a learning station, you learn. By then you would have realized that life is something which needs to be designed or shaped. in such a way that you get rid of ignorance and start learning. And a lot of learning happens in that second hall. And that is a hall where most souls spend a lot of time. Lot of time. They have several incarnations in this particular hall. And once the learning is successfully completed, we enter into the wisdom, hall of wisdom, where the person has transcended the dualities. Let us try to understand this little better and in an elaborated manner a little after. But at this point of time, remember, there is nothing to conquer in this world. You need not conquer anybody's mind. You need not conquer anybody's heart. You need not conquer the wealth, the glory. You have to conquer only one thing in this life. That is your mind. That's why in Kannada many times we say, ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೂ ಮಹಾದೇವನಿಗೂ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಪರದೆಯೇ ಮನಸ್ಸು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾ ಇಂದ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೂ ಮಹಾದೇವನಿಗೂ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಇರುವ ಪರದೆಯೇ ಮನಸ್ಸು. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಕಾನ್ಕರ್, ಈ ಪರದೆಯನ್ನ ಸರಿಸಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೂ ಮಹಾದೇವನಿಗೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. They become one. So sadhana is all about transcending that mind. A pilgrim has to pass through the 3 halls to transcend the mind. These halls provide the required training to the pilgrim. Required training. He gets trained as he passes through these halls. But then the question arises, why transcend the mind? And what happens when you transcend the mind? When you transcend the mind, you perceive the world or reality directly, without the mind tarnishing your impressions, without the mind interfering between you and the God, you and the reality, you and the world. You have a direct perception. When you have the direct perception of reality, you are in bliss. That is Ananda. What is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to be happy. Happiness is the purpose. Happiness at the mental level or at the psychological level is Ananda at the higher level. You know very well we are Satchidananda Swarupis. Navella Satchidananda Swaruparu. That is what Ananda is, the very essence of us. If that Ananda has to be attained, we need to perceive the reality as it is, which is impossible as long as the mind stays with us. A person who can perceive the world directly is called as Atmagnani. He is the mystic. He has conquered his mind. Perhaps your Shirdi Sai Baba, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana Maharshi, Madam Blavatsky, Swami Vivekananda, and several yogis, saints of India and even Western countries, mystics, Sufis, could have a direct perception of the reality. When they have direct perception, they are lost in bliss. Who is a Sufi? A Sufi is a person who has a direct contact with the reality. He has transcended the mind. It's a great sadhana. They have passed through these same halls which I am discussing now. And they have attained such a stage where they are called mystics. They are called Atmagnani. But how can you become an Atmagnani? What is the difference between Atmagnani and Tattvagnani? Atmagnani is the person, as I said, who is able to perceive the truth as it is without tarnishing the truth or without distorting the truth. He can perceive the truth as it is. A sharp, awake and aware mind is the one which is a primary requisite for Atmagnana. Anyone and everyone cannot become Atmagnani, because Atmagnana is possible only when a person has, over a long period of time, with his sadhana, has cultivated a sharp, fully awake and fully aware mind. Such a mind is possible only for a Tattvajnani. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you have to cultivate a sharp, awake and aware mind, first you need to become a Tattvajnani. You need to be a philosopher. You need to be a contemplator. You need to meditate on truth. You need to become a Tattvajnani first, because only a Tattvajnani can have a sharp, fully awake and fully aware mind. So once you become a Tattvajnani, probably it's far easier for you to become Atmagnani. Without becoming a Tattvajnani, you cannot become Atmagnani. That means to say, without becoming a philosopher, you cannot become a mystic. As you get trained in Tattvajnana, you attain at one point of time Atmagnana, when subtle vehicles or the subtle vestures that you are wearing expand, purify as you continue on the path of Tattvajnana. So please remember, you can never be a Atmagnani without a Tattvajnani. So to become a Tattvajnani and to attain Atmagnana, these are the three halls which are prescribed in the book Voice of the Silence. The first hall, as I said, is the hall of ignorance. A person living in this hall, or who has reached this hall in his travel as a pilgrim or as a disciple, is fascinated by the materialistic possessions of this physical world. If you come across people who are very lustful, who are very materialistic, who are habituated to possessing materialistic things, who are greedy, who are not ready to let go, and who love all the material possessions of this world, you can immediately say probably they are in the hall of ignorance, because that is the characteristic feature of this hall. People who are carrying highly materialistic attitude, or in this hall. They carry a lot of ignorance, avidya, aviveka. They are attached to anatma and asat. Anatma and asat probably refer to all ephemeral things. Everything keeps changing in this world, but for one thing that doesn't change. The thing that doesn't change is a permanent, and that is our Almighty, that is a Lord. Apart from that Shashwata Tattva, everything else in this world keeps changing. Everything. Maybe material thing, maybe non-material thing, it doesn't matter. Everything but for the Almighty is said to be Anatma and Asat. They are ephemeral, they are temporary, they are transient, they are not there forever. So, a person in this hall is passionate about all that which is impermanent. Maybe he is passionate about earning a lot of money, making a lot of wealth, and buying a lot of lands and living a lustful life, accumulating, hoarding, collecting, storing all that which is impermanent, transient. The person does not know Atma and Sat. Many times, a lot of these people, or these disciples, or these pilgrims who are in the hall of ignorance, are not even aware of Atma or Sat. Sat means truth. So it's nothing but the Lord, the Lord. Satchidananda Swarupa, isn't it? Sat is one of the Swarupas of God, who is permanent, who is eternal, Ananta. Many these people who are chasing the materialistic possessions are unaware that there is something which is permanent, which is Sat, Chit, and Ananda Swarupa, and that is something to be always cherished, and that is something to which one should heed. They are not aware. Sometimes they know that all these transient things are not going to stay with them forever. They know the very ephemeral nature of materialistic possessions, but they are not totally aware of Atma and Sat. They just know there is something which is permanent, but they're not aware of it. Knowing and awareness are two different things. Awareness brings a translation in the behavior. Knowing does not bring. Many smokers know that smoking is injurious. Many people who are greedy know that greediness doesn't take them too far. They know, but they're not totally aware. That means to say their behavior is not translated to the expectation. So knowing may not have impact on the behavior. You need to climb the ladder and reach awareness. So many people in the hall of ignorance may not be totally aware. These people have several wants, desires, passions. These wants, desires, passions, this is what we call trusha, vasana, asha. So this vanche, there are several words for this. People who are always in the midst of wants, desires, passions, possessions, they're held very fast to this materialistic world. They cling to the mundane world. They may attach to sense objects. They may attach to opinions and views. You might have come across people who say, what I say is the ultimate. What Bible says is the ultimate. What Bhagavad Gita says is the ultimate. And what I say is the ultimate. What another person says is the ultimate. They have their own opinions and their own views to which they are attached. These opinions and views are also very mundane by nature. They are the one who actually condition the mind. And many of them may be clinging to, means attached to, rites and rituals. Many times these rites and rituals would be blindly practiced without even knowing the veracity behind these rites and rituals. And many of them may be foolishly practiced for a long time, and people who are in the hall of ignorance do not question, do not analyze, do not discriminate between what is right, what is wrong. And what comes in the front of their mind is their selfishness, selfhood. Always they are on survival instinct. They want to survive and they want to flourish at a mundane level. Since people in this hall get attached and start clinging to sense objects, opinions, views, rites and rituals, and become self-centric, they identify themselves with so many ephemeral things. Since they identify with their own possessions, this hall is called as hall of identifications. People in this hall are getting identified to several things of their choice. And most of these things are transient and temporary. This is what most of the times we keep doing, isn't it? But detachment from mundane is must. Without detaching from mundane, you cannot progress. From worldly, detachment from worldly things, from mundane things is must. If you don't detach, you cannot take a next step on the spiritual path. At this particular junction, I like to again recall the idea that we are travelers, but unfortunately we have forgotten and we think we have come here to settle. We have come here to settle forever. That is the reason why we keep possessing, hoarding, accumulating. There's a wonderful paragraph which I extracted from one of the books of Osho. He beautifully says, a traveler stops at an inn. He passes the night there and he takes his meal. As soon as he has done so, he packs and continues his journey again. Isn't it? This is what a traveler does. A traveler is traveling. On the way, he comes across an inn and it is night time. He rests there. He passes the night there. Morning he gets up. He takes his meal, and as soon as his meal is over, he packs and continues his journey again. This is what we keep doing. In every life, we take rest on this physical plane, and once The time is over. We need to travel further. But the problem is, as for the host of the inn, he has nowhere to go. The host of the inn, that means to say the owner of the inn, as for the owner of the inn, he has nowhere to go. The one who does not stay is the guest, and the one who stays is the host. Now you tell me, who are you? Are you the guest? Are you the host? Such a beautiful explanation. The host of the inn need not go anywhere. Where will he go? He will not go anywhere. The one who goes is the guest. The one who stays is the host. You tell me, are you staying here forever? No. You are moving off. Once the call comes, you have to move off. So you are the guest. Then who is the host? The host is the Almighty, the Lord. And the whole world is His inn. And we are staying here for temporary time. But unfortunately, we develop so many attachments to the mundane, and in the process, we suffer a lot. I just like to narrate a short story, a Sufi story, which clearly says what happens when we get too much attached to materialistic possessions. Once upon a time, there was a monkey, and this monkey was very fond of cherries. One day, it saw delicious cherry on the ground, and it came down from the tree to get the cherry. But the fruit turned out to be in a glass bottle. The cherry was there placed in a glass bottle. The monkey is not ready to let go of the cherry, even after knowing that it is in a bottle, in a glass bottle. It wants the cherry. It has the craving for the cherry. At any cost, it wants to possess the cherry, eat the cherry, and enjoy it. The monkey somehow got hold of the cherry by sneaking its hand into the bottle through the narrow mouth of the bottle. Somehow it pushed its hand into the bottle through the narrow mouth of the bottle. And as it sneaked its hand inside, it enveloped its palm around the cherry. And it held the cherry in its palm and tried to withdraw the hand. The hand wouldn't come out. The monkey is not ready to let go of the cherry, and the bottle is not ready to let go of the monkey's hand. The monkey is not even aware that the problem is because it is holding on to the cherry. If he just leaves the cherry, the palm will become so thin that it could easily withdraw. But it is not ready to let go of the cherry. It's not even aware that it is because of the cherry the hand is stuck inside. All this was deliberate. You know, a monkey catcher had kept this bottle with cherry as a trap. A monkey catcher had kept this as a trap, as a bait. The monkey started whimpering. It is confused, and it's also very scared because its hand is not coming out of the bottle. The monkey catcher stealthily walked towards the monkey, and he knows the trick. What he did is, he just took the monkey on his lap and he just gave a tap on its elbow. As he tapped the elbow, we call it as a kind of elbow jerk. The elbow jerked, the monkey let go of that cherry, and the hand easily came out. The hand came out, but the monkey got caught by the monkey catcher. We are like this monkey. All materialistic things that we see in this world are like cherries. We are attracted to them. And many times we sneak our hands into the bottle of materialistic things, and our hand gets stuck. And our hand, if it has to be removed, either we need to be aware that we have to let go of the materials that we are holding, or a monkey catcher has to come and tap our hand. And many times, the monkey catcher for us is nothing but an external guru. The external guru does this work. He gently takes us on his lap and he taps on our elbow so that we let go of that materialistic possessions and start moving forward. The guru inside is our awareness. Either the internal guru or the external guru should lead us on the path so that we understand that this mundane is something which we simply watch, enjoy, and pass through, not get attached. So, this doesn't happen in a single life. All of us know materialistic possessions, chasing possessions is perhaps the most unwanted thing in our lives, and we are stuck to this mundane because of that reason. But we are not ready to let go. Please sit at a place and think, contemplate. We are not ready to let go of our possessions. And many times we need not have to let go of our possessions, but let go of our attachment to the possessions. Let go of the attachment to the possessions. It is said we are possessed by our possessions. Our possessions are possessing us. We think we are possessing the possessions, but in reality, the possessions are possessing us. So, in order to let go of this attachment and develop a detachment from worldly things, mind needs to be trained. And how do you train the mind? The training happens in the hall of ignorance. For this purpose, we need to work through the mind. Winning the mind through using the mind. See, mind is a barrier. At the same time, mind is a facilitator. Manayeva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayo. Bandhaya vishaya sango nirvishayam muktyai manaha. The same mind which actually is an impediment is also a facilitator. Bandhaya vishaya sango means when the mind is actually bonded or binded to the materialistic possessions. Bandhaya vishaya sango, the mind imprisons. Nirvishayam muktyai manaha. If you get rid of those worldly things from your mind, definitely the same mind liberates you. When will the mind actually, overcome its attachment to the mundane? The mind should be shown something which is far better than the mundane. The quality of mind is such that it can never remain free. It gets attached to things and only then it thinks it can exist. It creates attachment to several things and in the process, it exists. If these attachments are completely removed, there is no entity called mind. because attachment is a name of your ego. Where there is ego, there is attachment. Where there is attachment, you attach. You may attach to worldly things or you may attach to non-worldly things. Let's see that later. But we get attached. So winning the mind through using the mind. Use your mind only and win the mind. That's why we say mind is a barrier. Mind is also a bridge. It's a facilitator. So detachment from mundane is not an easy task. People do not change easily. This is a very, very tough thing in the world. People are not ready to change. People are not ready to change. Change happens only when they become aware. When they simply know the facts or things, they do not change. Change happens when there is inner motivation. When a person is motivated from inside, then only such a change can happen. And it again happens through your mind only. Despite people know that one should not attach to ephemeral, they still attach. And as we pass through the first hall that is called as the hall of ignorance or avidya, over several lives, we realize that these are transient things. We should not get attached. Probably an external guru or an internal guru. And as we grow in knowledge, as we grow in awareness, as we build on our experiences and learn from our experiences, we realize the fact. Many times we realize it through a hard way. And then happens the first level of separation. What is that which gets separated? Our self gets separated from anatma and asat. What all are worldly things from which we are going to get separated. This happens over many lives, as I said, under the guidance of an external guru or an internal guru, or out of your own self-knowledge that you develop over a period of time through your experiences. And when can you learn through your experiences? You can learn through your experiences only when you closely observe. When you observe the mind and the mischief played by the mind, only then you can conquer the mind. Either an external guru should guide you through, or an internal guru has to guide you through, or else you should develop a strong tool of observation. You should observe your mind and the thoughts of the mind and the background of the thoughts and the mischief played by all these thoughts of the mind. When you are a keen observer and engage in self-observation, you conquer the mind to an extent, and you understand these worldly things are really useless and they do not help you in the spiritual progress, and you shed your false skin. Your ego, which is getting attached to the mundane, would be conquered. But problem what happens here is you get detached from the mundane, and when detachment happens, you automatically move to the hall of learning. You are now in the hall of learning because you got rid of your passion to worldly things. But remember, hall of learning is also a hall where we are attached. We still cling on. You know, life is for learning, and life is all about learning. You learn till the last moment of your life. There is so much to learn. Probably we require several lives. A pilgrim usually spends most of his time in this hall. That means to say, Lot many people have several births when we are in the hall of learning, because one or two or few tens and twenties we do not learn, because we are slow learners many times. Exceptions are there. Very few people are fast learners, but many of us learn very slow. Most of our lives are spent in the hall of learning. In this hall, the pilgrim is free of materialistic desires, but he develops higher desires, like desire to realize Atma and to be in the company of Sat. Atma Sakshatkarada Ashe, Sat Swarupada Jataya Sahavasa, ನಮ್ಮ ಆಶೆಗಳಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಪದಾರ್ಥ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಆತ್ಮ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವನ್ನ ಬಿಗಿಯಾಗಿ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. So what happens is we become greatly attached to our atmic things and also the company of Sat. Learning Atma Vidya is not easy. It is walking the path of razor edge. It's not so easy to realize Atma. Atmic realization, as I said in the earlier slide of Katha Upanishad, it is a path of razor edge. Please remember, mind is again playing a trick. Mind is too good at playing tricks. What is the trick that it is playing? The trick that it is playing is, it detached you from worldly things and it moved you to the next level where you are getting attached to the atmic things, the Sat or the Shashvata Tattva. Sir, Padartha Prapanchavanna bittu Paramatma Prapanchavanna hidಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಒಳ್ಳೇದಲ್ವಾ? Yes, it is. It is a spiritual progress. You have moved from hall number 1 to hall number 2. You did learn a lesson, a very, very profound lesson you did learn. But what exactly happened here is, we are tenaciously hanging on to Atmik and Sat. The repose is changed, but the clinging has continued. We have moved from one end of the pendulum to another end of the pendulum as the pendulum started oscillating. We were on one extreme, that was, we were attached to materialistic world, and now we are getting attached and clinging to the non-materialistic entity that is called Atma or Sat Tattva. So Madam Blavatsky wonderfully says here, there is a lengthy verse that I have not taken up. I have simplified her presentation in the text matter. I have not placed the verses given by her. Okay. So she says, in the hall of learning, there are beautiful flowers of life. Beautiful flowers. This is a beautiful hall. Hall of learning is a beautiful hall. There are very, very attractive flowers. But if you put your hand into the flower, be careful. There is a serpent coiled beneath the flower, which is going to bite you. So all atmic things are like beautiful flowers. You put your hand and you cling onto the flower, there's a serpent beneath it, and it's going to bite you. Or you are going to hang on to it. So what exactly happened is, clinging has not changed. What has changed is the object of clinging. You were clinging to worldly things earlier. Now you are clinging to the higher things which are non-worldly. But remember, this particular hall will teach you several life lessons. You may take a pretty long time to learn these lessons, and exit from this hall. You can exit this hall only after you learn all the life lessons. Some of the lessons you may learn in a hard way. Some of them you learn easily by watching others, by meditating, by studying, by self-observation. There are so many ways by which you learn lessons. Experiences should teach lessons to us, but we are so stupid sometimes. Even after multiple similar experiences, we commit the same blunder again and again and again. So how can we actually exit this hall if we are not learning the lessons? This life is a great school. It's a mega school. It doesn't leave you unless you learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn. But one beautiful thing is, a fool cannot learn from wise man. If you remain a fool forever, you can never learn, even from a wise man who comes into your contact. You are with the contact of a wise man day in and day out, but you are not careful enough to observe, to learn the lessons from that particular person. But remember, a wise man can learn even from a fool. So that means to say, you need to grow wiser as you move from first hall to second hall, and that's where learning happens rapidly. In the hall of learning, what happens is we get stuck to our own ideas. See, there we were hanging on or clinging on to materialistic things in the hall number 1. But in the hall number 2, we have our own ideations. Ideations means our own imaginations. And imaginations about the Sat Chit Ananda. Our imaginations will trap us. In this hall, you realize attaching to even Atmic things and Sat, or eternal things, or permanent things, is also an impediment in the path of progress. No doubt your Manomaya Kosha will start expanding when you are in this hall and as you keep learning the lessons. Your Manomaya Kosha, or the mental body, which is made of thoughts and emotions, will get purified. So this is a hall of purgation. A lot of purification happens here, provided you really start learning the lessons. And as you learn the lessons, you realize that clinging on to good or bad, both are wrong. And you go for second level separation. What is second level separation? You're separating from Atmic things and the Sat. So earlier you separated from worldly things, and now you are getting separated from the eternal things. This is a wonderful short story from Chandogya Upanishad, which says attachment to higher things is also wrong. A life without any attachment is a one which is a liberated life, and such a soul is said to be the liberated soul. You should never get into these dualities, good or bad. And look here, in this hall, you get out of the dualities. That is what is exactly happening in the second hall. You get out of higher things, or getting out of attaching to even eternal things. This Chandogya Upanishad story wonderfully says that. You all know the Hindu scriptures which describe frequent battles between angels and demons. It so happened that angels lost a series of battles against demons. They were all badly injured and bruised. They all felt that it is impossible to win against the demons. They were disappointed, and all the angels collectively went and met their father. The father of the angels is Prajapati. They stood in front of their father Prajapati and expressed their plight to him. Prajapati heard them with all the concern and suggested them to engage in the upasana of Udgita. He said, "My dear sons, please start engaging in the upasana or the devotion, puja of Udgita." What is Udgita? Udgita means nothing but meditating the Parabrahman continuously without stop. So that was the advice he gave, and he blessed them. If you follow my instructions and meditate the Parabrahman continuously, you will be given the needful so that you can win against the demons. So the angels all came back to their world, their plane, and all the angels began their meditation. But what exactly happened is, the first meditation was done by the angel of speech, Vagdevi. Angel of speech is the Vagdevi. And this angel of speech was the one who first started meditation. And as this angel meditated and engaged in the meditation of Parabrahman continuously, very powerful holy words came out of this angel. Very powerful words. All the angels were happy and they praised the angel of speech. When all other angels praised the angel of speech, this angel was full of pride. It thought it did a great task. The angel thought it did a great task and an excellent work. The moment it started bragging that it has done an excellent job in uttering wonderful words, ego crept inside the angel of speech. And the angel of speech went or waged a war against the demons, and the demons injured this angel and the army of this angel, and the angel lost the war. The next turn was that of angel of vision. Angel of vision also started doing that upasana of Parabrahman, and soon what happened is, amazing, beautiful, and fascinating scenes appeared in front of all the angels. All the angels felt very happy and praised the angel of vision. And angel of vision, again, the ego of the angel of vision got inflated. It felt it did a great thing. It did a great task successfully. And under the leadership of angel of vision, the angels waged the war and they lost the war again. Demons, they were beaten very badly by demons and they were chased out. This happened one after the other. All sense organs, angels, after meditating, meditation means, you know what an intense spiritual exercise it is. It's so intimately related to the Atma. Despite all that, they were losing the battles. Ultimately, they invited Vayu Devata, and the Vayu Devata or the Vayu Deva appeared in front of them. And you know very well, Vayu doesn't get attached to any sense organs. Vayu doesn't get attached to anybody. And Vayu is the prana. He just keeps prana shakti. He just keeps moving. And this Vayu Devata led the team of angels and waged a war. He was never self-centric. He never bothered about any self-gain. He never bragged that he can do anything and everything. He simply took all the angels and he waged a war against demons. And the demons lost the war. So there's a wonderful moral which is hidden in this story. The moral of the story is that even sat or good things or atmic things create clinging. When they create clinging, thus ego appears. And when ego appears, that becomes an impediment on the path. This is what exactly happens in the hall of learning. We stop clinging to worldly, but we start hanging on to non-worldly. Mind is such a cleverful tool. It keeps playing so many tricks on you. You need to, that is the reason you need to transcend these dualities. Neither worldly nor non-worldly. Neither happy nor sorrow. Neither hot nor cold. Neither like nor a dislike. Look at this. In this hall, as you move, when you realize that even Sat and even Sat has to be let go, and even these permanent things have to be, you have to let go, then what happens is you are beyond the dualities. This is when the disciple is ready to meet the Guru. The Guru meets him here, but the Guru cannot. In this particular hall of learning, in the hall of wisdom, Vijnanamaya Kosha starts expanding. Sense of separation disappears. The self merges with the higher self. Vijnanamaya Kosha creates unity in us. Beyond all the dualities, as you enter the hall of wisdom, beyond all the dualities, you start experiencing the non-duality. That's why the hall of wisdom is called as hall of illumination. And precisely as you go beyond the dualities, beyond the hall of learning, and beyond the hall of wisdom, there is valley of bliss. Beyond the hall of learning and beyond the hall of wisdom, there is valley of bliss, Ananda Kanive. Guru, you can meet your Guru, internal Guru. You can meet your internal Guru or inner Guru in the second hall. But your Guru cannot initiate you, cannot give you the spiritual rebirth as long as you are in the hall number 2. You need to get out of the hall number 2 and enter the hall number 3, that is the hall of wisdom, where the Guru can initiate the disciple into the path of initiation. And just before the process where disciple undergoes third level of separation. So this is only after the third hall. And once a disciple emerges successfully out of the third hall, he enters into the valley of bliss, what's called Ananda the Kanive. And this is where the Guru can initiate the disciple. And the disciple enters the path of initiation. And there are several initiations. That's a different story, what we call as the path of discipleship and the path of initiation. We call Diksha Patha. ಹಲವಾರು ದೀಕ್ಷೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಜೀವನ್ ಮುಕ್ತ ಪದವಿ ಅದು that is a different path. Let me not get into the intricacies of it. So just before this process, before the disciple enters the valley of bliss, third level of separation happens. What is this third level of separation? Separating from the very concept of separation. Separating from the very concept of separation, it's a very high principle. That means to say you don't even have a tinge of that concept called separation. That means to say you have merged with the universal consciousness. It is nothing but the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa story of salt doll entering into the ocean and getting dissolved in the ocean so that it merges with the ocean. When it merges with the ocean, where there is separation, where there is duality, where there is I and you or you and I and the world or world and the I, nothing. That is what prevails ultimately is a universal consciousness. This is how the path terminates. But merging with the universe or universal consciousness is something which is beyond. The path is still long. In the valley of bliss, there are lots and lots of initiations. This is what we call Advaita, where the duality ceases and the non duality emerges. Thank you very much for patient listening.